record the meeting. Now I'm recording the meeting. Some people in here are laughing at my expense. It's hurtful. It's hurtful. All right, so there is your schedule for the day. Let's get right to it here. All right.
Is that the guy they were supposed to...
All the President's droids will continue after these messages.
Phew, that was intense. Dear Tim and Moby, we're learning about journalism in school and have to research a famous reporter. Nellie Bly seems pretty cool. Can you tell me more about her? Thanks, Amelia. You picked a great one, Amelia. Nellie Bly is as well known for how she approached stories as for the stories themselves. She didn't just report on current events. Back then, they were called madhouses or lunatic asylums, and they weren't very nice places. To get the inside scoop, Bly pretended to be mentally ill. She faked memory loss and acted strangely. She was declared positively demented and sent to the facility at Blackwell's Island. A resulting article, 10 Days in a Madhouse, was a huge hit. Readers were captivated by vivid details of freezing, filthy rooms, rotten food, and abusive staffers. Well, that's the kind of story that sold papers back then. The era's yellow journalism was all about drama and sensationalism. Writers used shocking details to pull readers in. For a lot of them, it didn't matter if the story was newsworthy or even true. But Bly stood out from her fellow reporters. She didn't make things up to grab people's attention. To get to the bottom of her stories, she put herself in the middle of the action. Even when it came to reporting on dangerous situations. She filed dispatches direct from the front lines during World War I, one of the only female reporters to do so. Bly was just as daring during her time as a foreign correspondent in Mexico. She criticized the nation's dictator for jailing political opponents and reporters. Eventually, she had to flee the country to avoid prison herself. Well, Bly was never one to shy away from taking risks. In one series of articles, she raced around the world to see how fast it could be done. This was more than a decade before the Wright brothers, so you couldn't just hop on a plane. Bly traveled by boat, train, horse, and rickshaw, filing reports by telegraph as she went. It was a hugely popular series. The paper even created a board game based on her adventure. After 72 days and nearly 25,000 miles, she arrived back in New York City. Yeah, it sounds kind of silly now, almost like a reality TV show. But this was 1889, when ladies were expected to have an escort just to go to the store. Taking a solo trip around the globe sent a message that women could accomplish anything, which was exactly Bly's intention. She'd always been frustrated by the limitations placed on women. As a little girl, she saw her mother struggle to keep food on the table after her father died. When Nellie and her brothers reached their teens, they went to look for work. While her less educated brothers easily scored high-paying factory jobs, Nellie was limited to what was considered women's work. Being a tutor or a nanny offered little chance to earn a decent living. Some of Bly's earliest articles focused on the struggles of working women to find challenging jobs, receive fair treatment at work, and earn equal pay. Misogyny, prejudice against women, was a focus of many of her stories, including her investigation of the mental hospital. Many of the inmates weren't even mentally ill. Immigrants were labeled insane just because they didn't speak English. Husbands had their wives committed just to get rid of them. And some women were locked away simply for speaking their minds or violating the unwritten rules that defined how women should act. Calling them insane was a quick and easy way to shut them up. Bly went undercover in other difficult situations in order to break stories. She exposed employment agencies that took advantage of servants, black market traders who bought and sold babies, and widespread harassment of young women by police officers. Her stories regularly sparked public outcries that led to real change. Bly was pioneering a new type of writing, investigative journalism. It's like a cross between reporting and detective work. Investigative reporters go to great lengths to unearth the truth. Some go undercover to get closer to their subjects, like Bly did. More often, it means spending months or even years researching a story. Threats to public health are a common subject of investigative reports, like when factories pollute rivers or companies hide when their products are unsafe. Uncovering that kind of truth can be dangerous. Those in power will often do anything to protect their interests. Political corruption is another big focus, like in the Watergate scandal. That's when President Nixon ran a spying operation against his political rivals. Nixon eventually had to leave office because two journalists refused to give up their search for the truth. In some parts of the world, they would have been imprisoned before they got very far. Our Constitution has specific language to prevent that from happening here. The First Amendment says that the government can't make any laws limiting the freedom of the press. It's no mistake that that same amendment protects our speech. When a reporter asks a politician a tough question or writes about a corporation breaking the law, they're speaking out for all of us. That's why brave people like Nellie Bly are so important. They are our watchdogs, our whistleblowers, our guardians of the... Point taken.
All right, all right, all right. Would everybody for me go right to Quizlet.live? Quizlet.live. Okay, let me share my screen here. Here is your code to enter. Missing just a handful of you here. Here we go. Give you about 30 seconds to get in, and we're going to do this thing. All right, here we go. There are your spirit animals, and they're racing. Get to know our executive branch terms. Here we go. Here we go, round 2, and they're racing. Tour of Schoology real quick. Okay, just so everybody's on the same page with due dates and all of that stuff. So let me do this. I'm going to view this course as one of you stinkers. So Fraz is first on my list. So we'll view the course as him. Here we go. All right. So the reason that I'm sharing this with you is a couple of different reasons here. Let me make sure that I am sharing the correct screen. Perfect. Okay. So we go right down here into the executive branch. We're going to be using a little something right here. If you want to open this one up right here that says, should the president be allowed to block you on Twitter? That's the first thing that we are going to do together today. But what I'm also pointing out here is that we've got a couple of due dates coming up after break, right? Okay, when we get back after break, you're going to have that Unit 6 assessment, and you're going to have that Unit 6 document being turned in later in the week. Okay, later in the week. So what that means is, just to kind of remember here, is that for those of you that still haven't done your Unit 5 stuff, as soon as we're done with Unit 6, as soon as we have that week coming back from break, okay, as soon as that week is over, we're on to Unit 7, and when we're on Unit 7, the Unit 5 stuff is going to be shut down, which means that you are going to be getting zeros in the grade book for stuff that you haven't turned in. So it would behoove you to turn in some stuff, okay, that you at least have done to that point, so I can give you some credit. Know what I mean? Are we clear on that? Okay. I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir here because I think a lot of this class already has that stuff done. But always remember these due dates over on the right-hand side, and hopefully you have that article open right now. Going to look a little something like this. All right, so this is an older article, but it's still relatively topical in that we still talking about Twitter and the former president even today. Did anybody see this on the news just recently here? Amazing. Amazing. Very rarely do you see somebody or two people that do not get along as much as the former president and one Bernie Sanders. Okay, they typically have not gotten along on just about anything. However, Bernie Sanders just this last week was defending Donald Trump. Does anybody know how? Does anybody know what he was saying? So the former president has been permanently blocked. Well, I'll say permanently, but it's kind of like indefinitely blocked from using Twitter. And a lot of people have said, okay, you can block that person because you don't agree with what that person is saying. However, Bernie Sanders is saying, okay, you're blocking that person, but who's next? Does that make sense? It's like there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, we should be blocking him because of the things that he was saying or inciting violence or whatever. Okay, I'm not here to say I agree or disagree with it, but the fascinating part is, folks, is that how often do you see two people on complete opposite ends of the political spectrum really kind of agreeing on issues on like that? Does that make sense? Okay, kind of interesting, I think. So I got my AirPods in so that I can read this and move about the room here. So we are under the Executive Branch Unit 6 document, and should the president be able to block you on Twitter? Okay. Hopefully those of you in the online world can still hear me even though I'm not at my desk. Here we go. Should the president be allowed to block you on Twitter? Now, this is back in 2018, okay? But it's still kind of, well, has a lot to do with what we're studying, okay, in this unit. President Trump has 54 million followers on Twitter, okay? And it's using the present tense because, again, when this was written, he was still president. He uses the social media platform to announce policies, attack political adversaries, and promote his administration's accomplishments. He also blocked some of his critics from his Twitter account. The exact number of people blocked by Trump is unknown, but free speech groups say it's at least in the hundreds. Last year, 7 Twitter users who said they'd been unfairly blocked from following Trump's account after they criticized the president filed a lawsuit saying their First Amendment right to free speech had been violated. In May, a federal judge agreed, ruling that Trump's habit of blocking his critics from what is effectively a digital public forum is unconstitutional. The Trump administration has appealed the ruling, so the legal battle will continue. Here, 2 experts, one from a conservative think tank and the other from a group that defends the First Amendment freedoms, debate whether the president should be allowed to block his critics. So this person says yes, the president should be able to block you on Twitter, just like anyone else with a Twitter account. The federal judge who held that the president violated the First Amendment by blocking certain followers on his account was wrong. The First Amendment, which says that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech, prevents censorship of Americans by the government. But Twitter isn't the government, it's a private social media company. So First Amendment protections don't apply in the same way. Some people have argued that Twitter is, in effect, a public forum since it's a medium by which so many people disseminate and receive news and information. That reasoning doesn't hold water. To be considered public, the forum has to be owned or controlled by the government, like a public park or a street corner. As a private company, Twitter, not the government, controls the accounts of its 300 million users, including Donald Trump, as its terms of service outline. Twitter may suspend or terminate your account at any time for any or no reason. So even though the president can block individuals from his own account, Twitter has the ultimate control of real Donald Trump. But don't American citizens have the right to criticize the president? Of course. Anyone blocked by the President Trump may say whatever they choose about him on their own Twitter accounts or anywhere else on social media for that matter, providing they don't violate the rules that those media have put in place for their users. The First Amendment, however, doesn't require Trump or anyone else to listen to criticism, and that's what the Twitter blocking tool is really about. Trump has the right to decide who will have access to his account, just like all other users. The fact that he is president doesn't change that. Okay, so this person now says no. Here we go. One of the core functions of the First Amendment is to protect we the people against government censorship. When the government opens up a space for the public to speak, it cannot, under the First Amendment, exclude some people from speaking there simply because the government doesn't like what they have to say. Though the country's founders couldn't have imagined presidential Twitter accounts, they understood that the president must not be allowed to banish some views from public discussions simply because he finds them objectionable. This public forum principle applies to digital spaces like Twitter, just as it does to physical gatherings like town halls or school board meetings. President Trump often begins his day by announcing important information on Twitter, such as the resignation of a cabinet member, the appointment of a new FBI director, or his views on Congress. This information instantaneously reaches his 54 million followers, and then often sparks a discussion among them and others on the tweet's comments thread. But when the president blocks a user, that person can no longer reply directly to the president, and other users can't see the blocked person's replies in the stream or reactions to the president's original tweet. The block user is excluded from the main current of the political dialogue. This is an example of an old legal concept known as viewpoint discrimination. Traditionally, judges have interpreted the First Amendment as prohibiting viewpoint discrimination by the government, even when the conversation occurs on a privately owned platform. The reason this issue is important is because so many public officials, Democratic, Republican, and otherwise, are using social media to talk to their constituents and to hear their constituents' views. The more that Twitter and Facebook become important public spaces where people communicate with their elected officials, the more important it is that the First Amendment principles aren't left behind. Okay, so that's one of our things right off of our Unit 6 document. Let me reset this here. Let's all open up Schoology right now, if you could. So this is what it looks like for you. Hopefully you guys can see my screen now. All right. So right down here, okay, this is what we've been working on, Hybrid Civics Unit 6. So if you were gone and you didn't get what we worked on earlier in the week, now is the time to just kind of rehash what we're doing there. Okay, you guys can all open that up right now. Okay. So this is what we did earlier in the week. Okay, we've got all of this stuff down. Okay, if you don't have this written down, where can you go to find these answers, folks? The slides, the Try3 Google presentation. The Try3 Google presentation, you click on that, it'll show you exactly how to fill out these things right up to here. All right. I'm assuming that a bulk of you have downloaded Executive Command and have started playing this game, if not finished, right? Okay. From here, I'm assuming that a bulk of you are going to be listening to this podcast right here. Okay. This is about 20 minutes, and you should be able to explicitly answer these things right out of that podcast. Okay. And then look at that. We're already done with the week 1 portion of the document if you get done with that podcast. Deal? Are there any questions about any of this, about what we're going to be working on for the rest of today? We're good? Okay. Well, that fulfills your online requirement today. Those of you that are joining us on my computer, those of you that live on my computer there, make it a great day. Have a super duper break. Take some time off. I don't want you guys working on anything civics related. Just take some time off and enjoy your break, okay? Very proud of all of you. Make it a great day or don't. The choice is yours.